We are back on the ESBR YouTube channel, giving you all the fights of this week. Once again, I'm joined by Paul Kelly, and we're breaking down all the big fights. Paul, how are you?
I'm all good, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Glad to be back again, looking at pretty good weekend of action, actually. We'll be breaking down three cards. We've got the Sky Sports Newcastle card, Navarrete fights on the Friday night, and then finally Mikey Garcia on the Zone in America on the Saturday night. So, as we are a British show, we'll start with the British card, and it's the Sky Sports card, headlined by Hughie Fury and Christian Hammer. Paul, which fight are you looking forward to most on this card?
So I don't mind that the main event. I think it's not going to say it's a really good fight, but it's one that kind of intrigues me. But for me on that card, the fight which is definitely under the radar and one that I'm definitely going to watch and keep my eye on is the Bradley Ray and Jez Smith fight. I think it's not even the top three fights, I don't think, on the card.
No.
But for me, it's the most competitive fight on the card, big time. It's a step up for Bradley Ray. He's undefeated, domestic level at the minute, and Jez Smith as well, domestic level. And you look at his record and you think 13-3 for Jez Smith. You're like, oh, that's not a great record. But his defeats have all come to Sam Antwi, Kerman Leharaga, and the guy who, this is so bad, who's from Belfast, that I can't pronounce his name. Is it a Yarko? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I feel really bad because he's from the same place as me, but yeah, there's three defeats and they're all like, good level, especially Leharaga, who was, in with Avanesian a few times and only got beat, but that's a high level. And we saw just beat Darren Tetley. So yeah, there is only three defeats. So it is a step up for Bradley Ray. He hasn't fought anyone like this in his career before. And I just hope that the two styles gel. And I think we're going to get a barnstormer of a fight between the two of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that fight is definitely under the radar. I haven't really heard anyone talking about that apart from maybe the fighters on social media. That's about it. Even Sky haven't really been pushing that fight maybe as much as they should.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is only the second fight on Sky Sports, the new era of Sky Sports. And one thing that I was quite surprised about is seeing Lewis Ritson sign just with Sky. It seemed like Matchroom did really like him, and Matchroom used to use him, obviously, especially in Newcastle, to market their shows. He takes on Henry Lundy. For you, obviously, Lewis Ritson's career is kind of not, I don't want to say tapered off, but it does feel like he's lost kind of some of the spark that he had maybe 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. Are you looking forward to that fight as well?
Yeah, Lewis Ritson's an exciting fighter. When he won that British title, he was ironing everybody out. And he was a really, really exciting prospect. And to what you said about tapering off, I know it's a wee bit harsh, but you're probably right. His career has stagnated, definitely. Like, I know he's only lost twice, but let's be honest, he lost 3 times, because that one against Vasquez was up there with one of the worst decisions we've ever seen. I remember all of us, and I remember all of us at ESBR just being absolutely gobsmacked by that. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, for Lewis Ritson's an exciting fighter. He'll always bring the fans, and if he's one of those where you're looking down a card and you're like, oh, I'm going to watch the boxing tonight. See, oh yes, Lewis Ritson's fighting. I'll tune in and watch that. So it is exciting. I know about. I don't know a whole lot about the opponent, other than the fact that he went the distance with Jose Cepeda last time out. So being in with a good company. So I'm hoping that Ritson wins, and if he does win impressively, that looks good considering the opposition that Lundy's been in with previously.
Yeah, and I think this could be a kind of fight where I don't want to say make or break for Lewis Ritson, but if he does win, we could see kind of like the Ritson that maybe we thought, and because he's an exciting fighter and people will continue to watch him whether he wins or loses, I think. But I think if he does win this again, we are going to see him start to probably headline cards again, and people kind of like look out for Lewis Ritson fights, because let's be honest, 2 or 3 years ago, like I say, he wouldn't be on a Hughie Fury undercard. Hughie Fury would have probably been on Lewis Ritson's undercard like 2 or 3 years ago, before those losses. So yeah, again, interested to see that fight on Saturday night, and see what Lewis Ritson's kind of got left. Then moving into the co-main slot, we've got the women's WBO middleweight title, the undefeated Savannah Marshall taking on the undefeated Lolita Mazea. I think this fight again is kind of like a stepping stone fight for Savannah Marshall. I don't know much again about the opponent, but obviously Savannah Marshall is one of the hardest hitting females in world boxing. I think she's obviously only 10 fights, but for a female fighter, that is quite like experienced at this point, especially at world level. Um, for you, what kind of things are you looking for in this fight?
I think on paper, our opponent's 16-0 and Marshall's only 10-0, so it does look like an evenly matched fight on paper, but I don't think it will be. I think Savannah Marshall's levels above this girl, no disrespect to her. And Savannah Marshall's class, you know what I mean? There's the problem I think we have is there's not enough, of a group of fighters a group of female fighters who are all like, in and around world level, or like fringe world level. It's, this level, and then like you've got your Savannah Marshalls and your Clarissa Shields up here. There's nothing much in between. So I think she will win pretty comfortably, and I'd like to see her, Savannah Marshall. We all know how good she is. I'd like to see her, maybe try and stop her and get her out with in the distance. I know that's difficult with 10 2-minute rounds, which is a whole nother debate. But we won't get into that now. But yeah, no, I hope she wins. Wins well, looks good doing it, wins comfortably, and we've mentioned it before, and Clarissa Shields doing her own thing at the minute, but that's the only fight to make. We want to see that fight in female boxing. It makes sense, and hopefully we can see it down the line in the not so distant future.
Yeah, and I think Savannah Marshall has shown that she's kind of got that one punch power, and I expect on Saturday night that she'll get maybe the highlight knockout of the night, and that's going something to say the main event is a heavyweight fight. But I do think she'll put have a highlight reel knockout and get a really impressive win. And just echoing what you said there, I think it's the same problem like the UFC have, where you've got like okay fighters in the world rankings, but that top elite level are so far above anything else that kind of, unless it's a unification fight or a top world level fight, it's so mismatched that you're kind of not as excited, I don't think. Clarissa Shields is obviously in PFL right now, fighting in MMA, which again kind of shows where women's boxing is in terms of pay. The fact she's gone to mixed martial arts in PFL to earn millions and millions of pounds that she probably wouldn't have earned defending her belt on Showtime or whoever she fights with in America. So again, maybe it is again that the fact that she just doesn't have the opponents, because however, how many opponents are there really that would cause her problems? And then we move on to the main event of the evening, Hughie Fury taking on Christian Hammer. And to be honest, actually, I'm kind of looking forward to this, and I don't know why, but I actually really am looking forward to this main event. For me, both fighters are kind of similar in level, and that's something that obviously, especially at heavyweight, I think makes it really interesting. I think they're both kind of fringe world level, to the point where obviously Hammer's been in with Tyson Fury, and he's been at that level but never beaten anyone who's actually like top world level. And it's kind of the same with Hughie Fury in the loss to Alexander Povetkin. I've lost who else he's lost to, but I can't remember. But you know what I mean?
Parker.
Like Parker, yeah, Joseph Parker. So they're both kind of at that level where they just can't quite get over that top level guy. Are you as excited for this fight as I am?
I wouldn't say I'm as excited, but yeah, no, it definitely does appeal to me, this fight. I do agree with what you're saying, and I completely see where you're coming from, in the sense that it's a fight which, don't get me wrong, I'm expecting Hughie Fury to win. But it's a decent name on his record if he does get the victory. A name on his record which, as of yet, does he have a big name like Christian Hammer? Or not saying Christian Hammer's a massive name, but does he have his name as big as Christian Hammer on his record?
No.
Yet, really? Probably not. So I'm thinking, yeah, it's not, it's not a massive big fight. It's not a huge main event for a Sky show as well, to be honest with you. But I know they're only getting started again, so I'll let them off for that. But yeah, no, I do expect Hughie Fury to win. I think it'll be interesting. I'd like to see Hughie Fury. I not saying every heavyweight has power, like that's every heavyweight has power, but I'd like to see him, maybe plant his feet a little bit more and use it. Because I feel like that, typical Peter Fury style, although it is unbelievable and really, really good, I feel like sometimes Hughie Fury could sit down on his shots a bit more. And he'd definitely get more stoppages because he's a big lump of a lad, do you know what I mean? He's more than capable of getting people like Christian Hammer out of there, I think. So I think it would be a good statement if he could get the victory inside the distance here.
Yeah, and obviously this is Fury's last fight since I think it was December of last year against Maurice Watt.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's probably is the best name on his resume, and we're a year on, and he's kind of in the same place. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he's at a point. Obviously, he's not old for a heavyweight, but he's kind of at the point now where he probably isn't going to get another world title chance unless he beats a guy like Christian Hammer convincingly. Obviously, the heavyweight world titles are tied up, and who knows if we'll ever see them defended by anyone in the next few years who aren't Usyk, Joshua, Wilder, and Fury. But hopefully they do loosen up, and I think we will see some vacations. And then if Fury's got 2 or 3 wins after this fight, maybe he does get himself into a spot where he becomes a mandatory and can fight for a world title. But if you're not beating Christian Hammer, then there's no point even talking about anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, big time. I agree.
And I do think his surname carries a little bit of weight as well, that in the fact that he could probably get a chance because someone
Yeah,
in the next few years will look at him as a kind of a marketing tool in his surname. So
yeah.
yeah,
He was given the chance. Sorry to interrupt. He was given the chance, against Joseph Parker.
yeah,
I feel like that was maybe off his name. Could be
yeah.
wrong, but he wasn't really. He wasn't. That was when Parker was still the WBO champion, so he was still the world champion. So he's challenged for a world title, and it wasn't that was actually a close enough fight, and it was too early for Fury in his career. But I feel like they're the type of fights for me that after this he needs to be looking for. He needs to be looking
Mm.
for the Parkers again, the Michael Hunters, even a name like Luis Ortiz, somebody like that, like a Tony Yuka. Wouldn't mind seeing that fight.
Yeah,
Um,
who beat Christian Hammer?
exactly, yeah. Pulev, probably if he wants to come back, I don't know what his motivation will be like after getting the Joshua payday, but even Gassiev, who's at heavyweight now, people like that. I'd love to see Hughie Fury fight people like those names I've just mentioned.
I
Because if he
think
can beat any of them, he's got every chance of being there or thereabouts in world level contention in the next few years.
yeah, and the rematch against Pulev, who he lost to, I think that
Yeah,
again would be a good
yeah.
fight. And it's
See, we
again,
can really gauge his development then.
yeah, and there are fights out there, especially in the world like the heavyweight world scene. There are interesting fights. Hergovic again,
Yeah,
Babic if he gets on. Like there's so many names now. Even a guy like Fabio Wardley. Like there's domestic level fighters as well who are ready to fight a guy like Hughie Fury and who would be a good name on Hughie Fury's resume at the same time. So
the only thing about that is I do agree with what you're saying, but I feel like Hughie Fury will not saying thinks he's above those your Fabio Wardleys, but he definitely is at the minute.
yeah,
So for me, I don't think he'll want to be that. If I was Hughie Fury right now and someone came at me with the name of, oh, you should have a good, a nice domestic fight with Fabio Wardley, I'd be like, no. What do I gain from that fight? I would want to fight the likes of. I would want to get a rematch with Pulev. I'd want to get
mm,
someone who's fringe world level because that's where I believe I am. Whereas, I feel like fighting somebody like Wardley, be going backwards possibly.
yeah. I think more from a Wardley standpoint that fight
Yeah.
would make sense. Maybe not from a Fury. So maybe the payday would have to be good, and then obviously
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of those fighters, it's going to have to be a matchroom and boxer collaboration as well, which might cause a few problems. Maybe the Pulev one. That's why that one might make sense as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the Newcastle card for Saturday the 16th. And then that brings us on to probably the fight of the weekend, and the fight that I am most looking forward to. And it's in America, in Fresno, California, and it is the return of Mikey Garcia. He takes on Sander Martin, the Spanish fighter who we have seen on DAZN previously. Um, Obviously, I expect Mikey Garcia to win this fight comfortably. I thought Martin looked good in his last fight, but realistically, it's nowhere near the level of a guy like Mikey Garcia. He is the European champion, but do you see this as kind of like a Mikey Garcia definite victory?
Yeah, I do. I see it as a comprehensive Mikey Garcia win. Stoppage, I'm not sure, but I'll come on to my reasons why of that in a bit. But yeah, Mikey Garcia, you love watching him. I feel like this fight, because we haven't seen him for a while, this is the type of fight where it's not a free shot almost, but like it's a fight. Your man Martin's a decent enough name, but it's one where Mikey Garcia, we're all being like, yeah, he'll win. It's like a good warm up fight for depending on what he wants to go on to do. So what I was going to say is that I do not think that it'll stop him. So he'll really see. He'll go out and knock him out in 2 rounds now. But my problem with Mikey Garcia is the weight he's fighting at. That's where the problem lies. I believe this fight's a welterweight. Is that right?
Yeah.
See, for me, Mikey Garcia is not a welterweight at all. At all. He's nowhere near a welterweight for me. He's 140, maybe even 135 for me, to be honest with you. He's definitely a lightweight or a super lightweight. I feel like that's where you get the best out of Mikey Garcia. So I don't want to see him at welterweight. I'm just saying I don't want to see him at welterweight. Although I love watching him, and I'll definitely watch this, if not live, the following day or whatever. But yeah, for me, Mikey Garcia needs to be moved down. I don't know whether this is because he just wants to get a quick victory and then next fight go back down, challenging for titles potentially. Like if that's the case, fair enough. But I don't want to see him, saying, yeah, I'm going to be a welterweight. I'm going to try and fight all these world class welterweights, because he'll just get beat up, in my opinion. No matter a good big guy, if it's a good little guy every time.
I think for me, the reason he is at welterweight is the paydays and the fights that you can make at that level, and I think that's why he has taken a guy like Sandor Martin, who's European title holder, a decent fighter, but let's be honest, he isn't the name of the rest of that killer welterweight division. And for me, this fight's kind of like seeing how he feels at the weight, see how he looks at the weight, and also setting him up for some major fights in this division. I know we've spoken about the welterweight division end on this show, and it is probably one of the best divisions in world boxing. I don't know how many times I've said that, but so for me, it's kind of like this fight's kind of like, again, a bit of a stepping stone fight where Mikey Garcia can get out again. Obviously now he's at 41 professional fights, like he doesn't really need a run out, but against a guy who's decent, no one's gonna be shocked if Mikey Garcia wins, because he is expected to massively. And I don't think that's what this fight's about. It's not about being an even matchup. It's about getting Mikey Garcia back out there after 18 months out, I think. So yeah, I do think he will stop him. The only thing that surprised me a little bit was that it's a 10-rounder for the main event on the zone, apparently. So make of that what you want, but I thought that was a bit strange. Yeah. So yeah, and obviously there is so many fights at that level. I do want to see Mikey Garcia in those fights. Let's be honest, we don't know how much longer he will be fighting for. So I think there's so many paydays that he can take.
Yeah, I agree.
And then finally, moving on to my second favorite division in world boxing, as Emmanuel Navarrete takes on, is it Joet Gonzalez? I've butchered his first name.
I'm sure someone will think that we've butchered his name, but yeah.
If anyone's got to this part of the video, they can write in the comments whether I've butchered that name or not. So Navarrete is probably, I know we've had discussions about who's the king of the featherweight division. It probably is Navarrete. I know we didn't really get an ending to the whole Warrington Lara saga, and it ended in disappointing fashion. But Navarrete is like the hardest puncher in that division. And he takes on a guy who also has only lost one fight, 24-1. Are you excited for this fight? Do you think it'll be a good matchup, or are you just looking forward to the future with Emmanuel Navarrete?
I think anytime Navarrete gets in the ring, you're excited. You're on the edge of your seat because, for someone who's a featherweight and fighting at 126 pounds or whatever it is, he carries a serious amount of power.
Yeah.
A serious amount of power. And as you said, Gonzalez's only defeat came to Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah.
So, high level. So what is it? Okay, Gonzalez doesn't have those massively notable names with his wins on his record. So we are just going off the one loss. But he did go the distance with Shakur Stevenson. He might have won 1 or 2 or 3 rounds, probably 1 or 2 rounds in that fight. But Navarrete, man, I don't really think this kid stands a chance, to be honest, against Navarrete, and that's trying to put it politely. I think Navarrete is just levels above, and he, for me, is at the minute. Well, I know we've got our own killers in the featherweight division in Britain, but for me, Navarrete's the man at the minute.
Yeah, and I know we've literally spoken for feels like hours about who is the best featherweight in the world. And one fight I would love to see, and I don't know if it would ever happen, but would be Lara in with Navarrete, because that fight could literally end at any time. It would feel like a heavyweight fight at featherweight.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and to get that, there's not many guys in world boxing at that kind of weight level who have the power of those two guys have. And I don't know if it would ever be possible, whether Lara whether Navarrete would even take it. Lara obviously doesn't hold any belts right now. So again, I know Kid Galahad's been spoken about to face Navarrete again. That's an incredible fight. Michael Conlon, even Lee Wood now, who again we've spoken about. Even a guy like Kanshu, even though he's coming off the Lee Wood loss, I wouldn't be shocked if he steps up again and tries to, maybe after a win or two, and faces a guy like Navarrete, because his name holds a little bit of weight now as well. Even after that loss, I still feel like. So yeah, again, whenever Navarrete fights, you've got to watch it, and I feel like it hasn't had the kind of backing this fight probably deserves. To say Navarrete is so explosive and so devastating, such a devastating puncher, we kind of haven't really heard much about this fight, especially in the UK. I don't know what the promotion's been like in America, but I've not really heard anything at all.
I'd love to, just thinking about Navarrete now, imagine you just, you know what about this for an idea, right? Just get him over to the UK, make him live here for 18 months, 2 years, and just say to him, right, you're going to have 4 fights. You're going to fight Lee Wood, Kid Galahad, Michael Conlon, and Josh Warrington. There's your next 4 fights. You're not going back to America. You're having 4 fights in the UK. That's what we want to see. Because could you just imagine every single one of those fights, we'd be on the edge of our seat for just because we're watching Navarrete, and we've also got our own world-class fighters, from this side of the shore. So yeah, Navarrete he's exceptional, and I'll definitely be, if not watching it in the early hours of the morning, be watching it on repeat the next day for sure.
One thing, imagine if we could get a situation where all the promoters could agree to just do a featherweight tournament and just have on 2 sides of the bracket. Imagine just have an 8-man tournament. Navarrete's probably the 1 seed, then Galahad, whoever, and just let them out. Let us find out who's the best. I know they're doing it in the with Chantel Cameron in the women's division. That's something I would love to see in the men's, and this is probably the division alongside, even actually, to be honest, even more than the welterweight division, because I think there's so many names in the welterweight division. In this division, we've got probably 8 top guys who we could literally just over a 2-year period put up against each other and really find out who's the best.
Yeah,
I think that's high in the sky thinking, and it will never happen because money is too important, and we'll probably never see any of these fights because it's boxing. But
just imagine that though, Navarrete, right? Here we go. We'll buy you a house. Here's your house for the next 2 years. You're staying there. You can train there. We'll put you up in whatever gym you want. Just get you and your crew over for 2 years, and you're fighting these 4 Brits. How does that sound to you? We'll give you however many million. Yeah. Awesome.
To be honest, do it in America. I don't mind. Just do it. Just as long as it's done.
Just do it. Yeah. Just fight them all.
Yeah. See, that's why we should be promoters. Just forget about
exactly. Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of the Boxing Week Ahead, brought to you by ESBRboxing.com. A pretty good week of cards, I think, and I hope you guys are looking forward to watching these fights. Let us know which fights you're looking forward to the most. Obviously, Fury Wilder has just happened. We are recording this before the Fury Wilder fight, so I think maybe this week's gone a bit under the radar because of the massive fight this weekend and the show in Liverpool. Once again, check out all the content on ESBR.com. Obviously, we're getting back to shows now. There's lots of pre-fight, post-fight interviews, so check them out. Greg's prediction videos. We'll be back again whenever the next big fight week is, and we'll see you all later. Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, Sam.